Welcome to the Rotary Club of Jonesboro, 5-time reigning Club of the Year. Okay, Jarrett Free, our own Jarrett Free, is going to introduce the program today.
So it's my pleasure to have this opportunity to introduce Jeff Morris as the guest speaker. Jeff is the Director of Economic and Community Development at East Arkansas Planning and Development District. He's been a longtime advocate for Northeast Arkansas and stands out in his field. His passion and his appreciation he holds is what it takes to make economic development a driving force in this region. Jeff is a Jonesboro native and a graduate of Williams Baptist University with a bachelor's degree of science in business administration. His last 7 years he spent as regional field representative and a project director for Tom Cotton's office. He and his wife, Ashley, make their home here in Jonesboro. Last but not least, he's a fascinating friend and a colleague. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jeff Morris.
Thank you. Well, that's a much kinder introduction than I really deserve, but I'm blessed to be here with you guys. And Jarrett is a vital part of our organization as well. You'll hear from him in a moment. We're also glad to have our probably the smartest man in at least our office, Mr. Mark Goodman here. He is our data analyst, and he is well esteemed in this field and known throughout the state and beyond. And we're glad to have him as a part of our staff. But I'll start with this. You know, the first question that I get whenever I begin to talk about what we do, of course, they usually see the EAPDD logo on my shirt and say, well, what in the world is EAPDD? So we'll start with that. And then Jarrett is going to talk a little bit about financial services and his division and what he does. And then Mark is going to go through some of the economic parameters and some of the latest data that impacts us here in Jonesboro and Cricket County. So beginning with what is EAPDD? So first and foremost, we are a nonprofit, I'll say quasi-governmental regional planning and development district. It's a very unique structure. Yes, we are a nonprofit, but we are designated by the Economic Development Administration back in 1965 to be the arm of local economic development here in the state. So we cover a 12 district or a 12 county rather area that I'll show you in a moment. But our customers per se are our local elected officials. So that's who we work for. Mr. Marvin Day in the back, he is specifically our customer and also serves as a esteemed board member on our team. And so that is really who we work for. So going on to what area that we cover here. So we cover 12 counties, which is 116 cities within those counties. And I like to say that we have unlimited opportunity whenever it comes to doing what's best and right and making progress here in our region. So go on to my division specifically. So as the district's economic and community development director, we do grant writing first and foremost for all of our communities. So we are not a granting agency. I like to refer to us more as the broker per se. So we go out and develop applications and projects in conjunction and on behalf of our local elected officials. And then if those projects or grant funds are awarded, then we manage the project and we administer the grants. There are various pieces of reporting and compliance measures that take place kind of behind the scenes. So we handle all of that, and we're blessed with a great staff who does that day in and day out for us. So of course we do project management, grant administration. I said that. We host various grant workshops, latest one back just a month, 6 weeks or so ago. there's a grant known as the Assistance to Firefighters Grant that FEMA administers or has as a program. And those smaller grants, we help our communities in doing grant workshops to teach them how to write a grant, best practices. And at the end of the day, they leave with a at least mostly completed application for funding. So we do data and analysis that you're going to hear about with Mark here in a moment, and also do a hazard mitigation planning as part of our portfolio of services. So that's just a little bit about what we do in economic and community development. I want to turn it over to Jarrett here, who's going to tell you a little bit about financial services and the important work that they do. And then you're going to get to hear from Mark after that. So thank you all for having us here today.
So as financial service director, I oversee 2 EDA revolving loan funds. Just to give you a backstory, one revolving loan fund has been here since 1983. But basically it's here to help existing small businesses and entrepreneurs in their startup that may lack the financial viability to go to a traditional institution. So we currently have about $2.5 million that is in our capital base, and we offer competitive interest rates and flexible terms. That being said, so we're not out, charging high interest rates for people that can't go to a traditional bank. So we're competitive in that point of view. One of the stipulations that's always been before the CARES Act came into play, we actually had to have 2 declination letters. So they had to go out and actively get to decline twice from a traditional institution before they could even come to us. Well, with the CARES Act, we actually are able to fund anyone. And so my big selling point is some people, and I'll kind of pick on SBA. SBA still requires, I think they reduced it from 20 to 10%. But some people, even existing businesses that are doing well, they still lack the viability, cash on hand, per se, to be able to go borrow money. So that's where I come in, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. With that being said, we've created, since I've been there, I've had a small tenure there for just about a year, but over that, we've created 30 jobs, and that's direct and indirect jobs, and then a little over $1 million. So we have a little ways to go. Like I said, we have about $2.5 million left, but we're on track to do well. Let's see if I have anything else. Actually, I'll go to this. If you guys know of anyone that fits that criteria that might be interested in a loan, please don't hesitate to reach out for me. And later on, I think after Mark speaks, if y'all have any questions, I would be glad to ask or answer any. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here today. And so today, my role, and I guess I have till like 2 o'clock, is that right? Hope I can finish on time then. Is to talk about, right now, we're in the process of going through a strategic plan for resilience and recovery. It's funded by the EDA, and there's a lot involved with it. And it's not just about COVID and what we've all been going through, but it's what we look like coming out. And so a big part of that, it's not the sexy part of economic development, but a big part of that is in data, right? Information-based decision-making. It all comes down to information. And so, it's key directly, but I'm going to show you a few things today that will impact us indirectly with everything we do, but also hopefully things that you all can do too. And so we wanted to show you this today. This is some of it's regional information, but some of it's just localized here to Jonesboro and Craighead County. We're all in this together. And so I just wanted to hit on a few things. And first of all, with the census that has just come out, and some of you may have already seen this, one thing that this is universal across this country anyway, is that there's a huge rural to urban shift going on, right? It's been going on for a while, and we're capturing it. And this is just across our district. This is pretty consistent with the middle of the country, where your largest counties, your urbanized areas are doing really well. And your more rural communities and counties are losing population. It's just a pattern. Does it mean it's going to always be this way? None of us know that. Key from our perspective, though, is just tracking this and then estimating out. As you can see, Craighead County has done very well since the last census and since 2000 for sure. Look at that. And but across our 12 counties, only 3 counties gained population in the last census. Just you talk about the need. Actually, indirectly, it impacts us here in Jonesboro too, right? The need for rural economic development. Because let's face it, what happens across our whole trade area, our region, impacts us here in Jonesboro too. And part of our role is to kind of quantify that. Okay, I'll go through these line by line. Not really. Okay, but I did want to show you that, so we're tracking this for all of our counties, and key is, you know, as you measure economic development, it's about the flow of people and money. That's how we quantify it. And what you're looking at here are the largest employers in Craighead County in 2020. And if I were doing targeted industry analysis, that sort of thing, I'd be looking at our largest employers, those that are growing in employment, those that have earnings that are above the median for the county. Obviously, we're not in a race to the bottom, so we want to keep growing incomes, right? And finally, they have a level of specialization. That's what that column on the far right is. It's to show their relative strength in the area. And that's how we all identify our top targets. And look at our leading employers by sector. You know, percolating to the top, healthcare is huge here. It's extremely important, and directly and indirectly, it impacts us profoundly. Higher education in general, the role of state and local government has a huge economic impact on our region. It's just kind of interesting. You're looking at the top 50% of all employers, of all employment, I should say, in the whole county right here. All right, a little bit about the region. Part of our role is to track what's happened during COVID and our response to it and all of that economically, but also to look at it in the context of over time, you know, last 10 years. And region-wide, total employment, we've lost about 6,000 workers, okay, region-wide. We'll have this by counties. Well, by the way, too, always happy to come back and visit with you and show some of this as we update our data, too. Just let us know. For the tough questions, we'll give them to Jeff. I'll take the easy ones. I want to show you, with the drop in employment, look where it takes us back to, about 2013, just to kind of put it in perspective, region-wide. Just some of the sectors, you know, that we've all heard of, healthcare, for example, that's what's happened across our region in the last year. By the way, the 2021 data are just coming out now, and we're seeing a bit of a turn back, but it certainly isn't, you know, we're just starting to turn it around. Okay. Restaurants, hotels, that's this sector, hit pretty hard regionally. And finally, retail. But what I wanted to point out about retail is that we're also facing, employment-wise, headwinds that have been going on since before COVID. Since online shopping and all that, it's impacting brick and mortar retailers, okay? And we know, you know, with the legislation that passed in 2019, thank goodness, that allowed us to capture retail sales tax from online purchases, right? Imagine during COVID, what would have happened if we didn't have that? I mean, how many of us were spending online, you know? But the point is that we're losing, and we're still losing, the employment associated with retail, and it's starting to impact our communities. Notice the trend, it's been going down for a while, since before COVID. It's just kind of interesting from an analytic standpoint. It's important that we study this and communicate it to help our folks at the local level make their own strategies and decision making. Talk about the importance of not just like Jarrett with the revolving loan fund, and others that have something like that, small business development centers, all of us, it's important that we do everything we can to get small business development happening because of the jobs too. It's not just the sales tax, but it's the jobs. Speaking of retail sales, what you're looking at here is going back to January of 2019. And we track retail sales for all of our counties and communities on a monthly basis. And of course, especially in states like Arkansas, as retail goes, so goes the community, you know, with our sales tax and our dependence on sales tax. You can see, by the way, you see that little blip before that line that goes up and down there? That's every December, by the way. Every December, there's an increase in retail sales. And you see that. Well, that line is really, that's where COVID hit us. Okay. And you see after that, we got to jump. Everybody got to jump, right? And so you're seeing the effects of stimulus here, kind of holding all of us up. And over time, the second round of stimulus, you can actually see that. I'm going to have to step away from the mic here. That is that second round of stimulus that happened. Okay. And so we can actually track that and see how that plays into the economy, but also how stimulus is washing out of the economy now too. Okay. And that kind of takes us to the next graph. So first of all, I look at this and I'm pretty upbeat, right? This is pretty good, nominally speaking. This is a more helpful measure from our perspective as we measure what's really happening. And so what this is a calculation we apply to retail sales. It identifies the percent or the people that are captured based upon actual spending. This is Craighead County. If you go back to January of 19, the far left, we were at that time capturing 160% of our own people's money. Okay, that's great. Okay, and for a regional center, you expect that. And you can see with COVID, it went shooting up. Okay, so what we're watching now, not just here, but everywhere around here, all of our counties, is where does that wash back down to? As stimulus leaves the economy, where do we find ourselves? Above, below, where we were when this all began? And, you know, we can all speculate as to how things are going to fare out. We're going to find out, though. And data, you know, there's always a 3-4 month lag to getting data. And so as we get this too, if there's any interest in seeing this months ahead, or you have a speaker that backs out, give us a call. This is another thing, and a lot of folks don't get a chance to see this. We look at measures that impact our economy. And what we're looking at here is we have calculated, we purchase data sets that help us do this. What are called employment and income multipliers for every sector of the economy, locally and regionally. So what you're looking at here, I've ranked from high to low of the employment multipliers, and I'll explain what that is in a second, across our county and the sectors that have the highest bang for their buck, so to speak. What a multiplier is, it measures the relationship between those direct jobs and those sectors and all the other jobs in the economy that are there because of them. Suppliers, you know, I mean, everything from dry cleaners and grocery stores to construction companies, manufacturers, the whole thing. There are ways to actually measure the linkage between sectors in an economy. And I have arrows on 2 big ones because I'm looking for high multipliers, but also those that have lots of jobs too. There we have rice milling, which is a pretty big employer in Craighead County, with a multiplier of 4. So what that means is that for every 1 job in that sector, there are 3 additional jobs that are created in the economy. That's huge. That's great. Now, multipliers work both ways, and we see it during a recession or when a company leaves town. The multiplier also works in reverse. So we track this, and from our perspective, in terms of like quantifying the impact of COVID and the sectors that have been impacted, we can look at a whole sector and see what's happened and how that one sector has impacted the rest of the economy. Or even do hypotheticals. What if we lose this sector, you know, retail? what does that mean for the rest of the economy? Kind of interesting. To me, anyway, I have to admit. I'm a nerd, I have to admit. Okay. All right, so what we're looking at here, this is also another measure. It's called, you've heard of gross domestic product. This is the county equivalent to gross domestic product. It's called gross regional product. What are the sectors that are basically the pillars to our economy in Craighead County? And I don't know if you all can see that up there. Again, healthcare and education and government and some manufacturing work their way up to the top. That whole table there is the top 75% of all economic activity in the county, those sectors alone. The next, what's in the green polygon there, that's the top 50%. Sorry, 50 and 25%. Sorry, 50% and then 25% inside the green of our entire economy. So a few sectors have a huge impact. And finally, we talk about the flow of people. I know this is colorful here. This is a grid we have that shows the labor sheds of all of our counties. A labor shed is where our workers come from. So if you look across on the left, Craighead County at the very top, and then you go down all those counties and the percentage of their employees that come to, or the percentage of jobs here in Craighead County that come from those other counties. That's how we identify where people come from. And that's important, but that's just one side of it though. This is, obviously we all use this. Now this is secondary data. This is from the census. And I would almost guarantee if we're, like all of us, if our businesses are mapping out, if we were to map out on a map where our employees really come from, it would actually be bigger than this, I would bet. But again, this is just half the story here. The other half is, and we're working on that now, it's called a reverse labor shed. It's where do people who live here work? And here's why this is important, because every day, wherever they go, they come back with their paycheck and they spend it here. We have the opportunity to benefit both ways. Well, or whoever we are, lose both ways, but hopefully benefit. We benefit from the jobs here, but we also benefit from the people who live here and go somewhere else to work. Who cares where they go? They come back with that paycheck. They live here, and so this is where they spend their money. And in Arkansas and other states like us, with the sales tax, economic impact is realized where people live more than where they work, because much of economic impact is in sales tax. It's of the employee spending. So it's where people live and spend their money. And so if we are a great place, then, I mean, rhetorically speaking, if we're a great place, then we have people wanting to be here, and who cares where they work? This is where the money comes. That's important. That's the other half of economic development. And in today's world, things are changing, like in every sector. Things are changing in economic development fast. People, I mean, how many of you worked remotely during this experience, right? Well, depending on who we are and what sector we're in, a lot of companies are choosing to keep going that way because they can save a lot of money. And you think about the importance of attracting and retaining talented workers, for people to live here, even if they're working in Mexico City or Dallas or Chicago, who cares? But they live here because they have a laptop. That's all they need. They get their money here. Anyway, that's the other side of economic development. A lot of folks don't talk about that, but we're trying to study that now too. And so just to sum up here, from a data side, the data are just kind of showing us a picture now. We want to keep looking at this further because we're not just interested in what's happened during COVID, but the long-term trends and what those opportunities show for us, coming out of that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff if you want to host any questions or whatnot.
Marvin Day. So Mark, from looking at the data, so let me back up a step. I look at Beverly and many other people in this room that work very hard every day to try to make this community better and grow. And it's really what this club's all about. From looking at the data, what sort of things do you see that will impact the growth? Or what, let me state that differently. What sort of things you see that this community can do to positively impact the growth of our community going forward? Small question, softball there.
Good question. I would say this would be true of any community. Again, going back to the two sides of economic development, we're doing really well on the business development side of things, from everything I read, right? And it's to focus also, which I'm not saying we're not, but this is what I'd say to any community. You focus on your business development, but we have to focus on attracting and retaining talent too. Even International Economic Development Council, they're kind of like the head of our order, the Association of Economic Development Professionals, and they have their own research foundation and research that's coming up from case studies and whatnot. They're talking this now. This is what's absolutely coming out of there today. Not to diminish the importance of traditional business development, but also the importance of being a great place. And what are those things that make us a great place? It's, healthcare, good schools, housing, and those things that not just employees that you're trying to recruit here or retain here, but their family members. It's what they're demanding. And that whoever we are that community we're being what they demand, so we can keep them here. The cost of turnover, especially the more talented or skilled the workforce is, right? The cost of turnover is just tremendous. And especially today, with what our economy, where things are, retaining talent is critical. So focusing on those, what they call factors of location, but not just business location, but people location. Focus on being in a place, quality of life programming, festivals. Those are things that matter a lot. As a matter of fact, the Area Development Corporation, they do a survey of corporate executives every year, and is published. I remember reading this since when I got into the profession 30 years ago, geez. That every year they have their top 30 list or whatever of factors that corporate executives say are the most important factors of location or relocation, expansion of businesses, whatever. And over the last 10 years, the one that's been going up and pretty rapidly now is quality of life. That they're recognizing. It's like in 2018, it was like 6th in the list. It used to be all just like incentives and highways, and that's not all important, but all those other traditional business development factors. Now quality of life is moving up there. And so I would say to everybody, all of us, we all need to take heed, and be that place that folks want to be. Because, 20 years ago, we couldn't have imagined that the companies that allow for virtual employment would be what they are. So what does the next 10 years look like? Are we going to be ready for that? And are we going to be able to have people living here because they want to be here, no matter where they work?
Bill Burnett, and right in line with what you're talking about, describe what you think the impact the steel mill of Mississippi County is going to have in this area. And the quality of life, things I have read have indicated that many of their employees there may not live or reside in that area. They want to move someplace else, 4 days on, 4 days off, this type of situation. Just what's your impression and thoughts on this matter?
So great question. And we're in fact quantifying the impact of that sector in Mississippi County and the whole region. And along the lines of what we're talking about, people are living or can live here and work there, or work in Memphis or wherever, and it's not a hard commute, even those that are working 5 days a week. Just like anywhere in Mississippi County, they need to pay close attention to that, and I'm sure they are, is the need for housing and those factors of location. Because you talk about the economic impact of the steel industry, which is just incredible, right? How much of that is realized in Dyersburg, or in Crothersville or other places? And that's leakage. That's right off the top. Just the same, how much of that's realized in Jonesboro? And, the the better a community is, whoever we are, the more we'll benefit from any regional economic activity. And in a competitive environment and where people make those choices. And I would, Mississippi County, they have so much going for them, on the industrial side. And you talk about the opportunity that they have to capture that economic impact. And they, of course, they know, they want to do that. But yeah, we tend to, a great place, Jonesboro is growing like crazy. So not everybody who lives here is working here, going back to the reverse labor shed. So allows us to quantify where our folks are working. And then they come home with their money, and they spend it here. We benefit from any opportunity regional.
I was wondering on your data for Craighead County retail, you talk about COVID through that, but how did the tornado affect it? But March of 20.
Yeah. Well, we still have an hour. So that happened in 20.
March
of
of 20.
I wasn't living here then. Do I see a blip? That's it. Right after COVID began. Yep. Jonesboro. Sorry. Thanks. Yeah. Yep. And so that's a really good question. And, it also shows us the data only show us so much, and the importance of surveying to take it to the next level, the importance of that, I can't stress that enough. That's a really good question. If it impacted the mall, obviously,
I'm going to point out that the people who were raised here and lived here for a long time have a different perception about quality of life and what the people looking for a place to live have. And I don't think that many people have awakened to that. So in terms of our sidewalks, our parks, not building always a wider road, but maybe more effective transportation options. And I'll plug my Keep Jonesboro Beautiful. We're not a very attractive town. When you're just coming here, you look around and you see a lot of litter. We need some beautification. We need to work on all those things because we heard from Hytro and all their successes, et cetera, et cetera. But again, people will live wherever it suits their family best. So we're competing not just in the region, but around the world for people to come to Jonesboro. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Agreed. We have to be surveying and reaching out to folks who, like you say, folks, not just those of us who are here, right? But those of us who are new to here, because that's who anybody else will be in the future, and put all that together. And all the findings are important. And never let that get ahead of us. And that's true for any community, but really know what's going on because it's a business retention issue.
Jarrett, Jeff, Mark, we sincerely appreciate you coming today. Very good information. And I was sitting there thinking, I didn't know they did all that stuff. And I think it was informative to everybody. Thank you for taking your time. And as a memento for your presenting the program and being with us today, I have a Paul Harris coin. They're pretty attractive. And in a minute, we're going to repeat the four-way test, and it's on the back of that. And just carry it with you or put it in your desk, and always remember your day with us. We appreciate it. Okay. Our meeting next week, February the 22nd. Dr. Steve Leslie from ASU will be with us, and he will talk about the best practices for promoting and engaging public image. Okay, Rotarians, please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?